Mr. Chairman, my amendment is to reduce funding for the Legal Services Corporation in the fiscal year 2013 CJS Appropriations Bill by $128 million, bringing its funding down to only $200 million for FY13. The $128 million would then be moved to the spending reduction account for deficit reduction. The main focus of the Legal Services Corporation, at least in the eyes of every farmer, rancher, poultry producer I have met with, is to harass those in the agriculture business. Some examples of this unwarranted harassment includes filing surprise lawsuits against farmers for problems found related to housing and transportation, payment issues related to work visas and visa applications, border crossing fees, etc., all without allowing the farmer and the migrant worker to attempt arbitration. Some of those are Legal Services Corporation representative actively soliciting clients by knowingly trespassing on farmer property or waiting for migrant workers outside of Walmart stores and other places, and informing such workers that if they sue their employer for even the most minor issue, they will receive monetary settlements. These lawsuits cost our farmers hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees each year, and in some cases cause their financial ruin. In one specific case in Georgia, who did not want to mention his name, fear of retribution, one farmer in 2008, his cost alone in legal fees was $525,000. Furthermore, federal LSC funding is redundant. According to a 2008 report, and I only use the 2008 report because there's not been a comprehensive report since 2008, the Center for Justice, Law, and Society at George Mason University, the total state, county, and local expenditures for indigent defense services that same year was almost $4.5 billion. Federal defender organizations, which also use federal funds for indigent defense services, received $849 million in federal funds for the same purpose that year. Combined with the almost $351 million in funds for the Congress appropriated to the Legal Services Corporation in 2008, the total amount dedicated to indigent defense services that year was almost $5.7 billion. The American taxpayers do not want their money wasted on an organization like this. Our agriculture community cannot afford to keep fighting the frivolous lawsuits that the Legal Services Corporation has filed, and we cannot afford to keep funding them in the current budget climate. Local legal services programs supplement the Legal Services Corporation grants with funds from a variety of government and private sources. This is not the only source of funding. Non-LSC funding sources include state and local grants, some interest on lawyers' trust account programs, federal programs such as Title 20, Social Services Block Grant, the Older Americans Act, the Violence Against Women Act, and the Community Development Block Grants, and private grants from entities such as the United Way, foundations, national, state, and local bar associations. In addition, private attorneys accept referrals to provide legal services to the poor, primarily through the Legal Services Corporation's funded of pro bono programs. The LSC does not provide legal services directly. Rather, it funds local legal services providers referred to by the LSC as grantees. Grantees may include nonprofit organizations that have as a purpose the provision of legal assistance to eligible clients, private attorneys, groups of private attorneys or law firms, state and local governments, and certain sub-state regional planning and coordination agencies. In its FY 1996 budget resolution, the House assumed a 3-year phase-out of the Legal Services Corporation, recommending appropriations of $278 million. Here's what the budget report said. Too often, lawyers funded through federal Legal Service Corporation grants have focused on political causes and class action lawsuits rather than helping poor Americans solve their legal problems. A phase-out of federal funding for the LSC will not eliminate free legal aid to the poor. State and local governments, bar associations, and other organizations already provide substantial legal aid to the poor. And so for that, I think that this is a good reduction to start to eliminate the funding, and I hope that we can pass this amendment and then further the reduction.
Time the gentleman has